All right, guys, here we are in 10.6. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the notes with you on 10.6. And at the end of the lesson, I'm also going to go through a couple of problems off the homework just to make sure. But 10.6 is about the equations of a circle. And you may remember this from Algebra 1. But if you find the center of the circle, in this case, we're talking about on a coordinate grid. So for instance, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. We have special variables that we use to represent the center of a circle, and that is h, k. H is the x coordinate of your center, k is the y coordinate of your center. And if I were to draw, you guys would be so proud of me, I have another color I could use. If I were to draw a segment from the center to a point on the circle, I think we all know that that is called the radius. And so when we want to write what we call the equation of a circle, I'm going to actually give you two formulas. The first one is, it comes from actually the distance formula. So let's just say that you have this point right here as some xy coordinate. That's some point on the graph. To find the distance, if you remember that back a long time ago, you take the difference of your x's, square it, add it together, add the difference of your y's, squared, add together. So let me say that again. You take the difference of your x's, subtract, right? Square that number, take the difference of your y's, square that number, add them together and take the square root. That would give you the distance between the center and the point on the circle. That's your r. So essentially r is equal to the square root of h minus, x. We want to write the x first. X minus h squared plus, essentially, doesn't really make a difference, but the way the formula is mostly written is with your x first. So it would be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. So that's how you would find the r. But the actual equation of a circle is r squared equals x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. And that is the formula for the equation of a circle. So when you're asked to write the equation of the circle, this bottom one is actually what you're going to be using. So what that means is, working backwards, when you take a look at what is the radius, or maybe you're looking for the center of the circle, just know that r is squared. So if r was, say, 49, you know, or r squared is 49, or you had a 49 here, you know that the radius is actually just 7. And we'll go through some examples, but this right here, this is your equation of the circle that I want you to use, okay? All right, so let's do an example. Actually got a couple of examples here. It says, give the coordinates of the center, the radius, and the equation of the circle. So we're going to start here. Notice this is an xy coordinate, and I always take a look at what each unit, it goes by ones. That's always important. You always want to look at that. So the center right here, it looks to be at the origin. So the center is going to be 0, 0. That is going to be your center. And the radius is just going to be counting how many units from the center. And I usually just stay on the vertical or horizontal. So for instance, here I'm going to the right 2. You could go up 2, left 2, down 2, but no matter where you go, you're going to have the same r. Remember, r is always the same. So it looks like my radius is 2. So remember, this is your h, this is your k, and so if we use the formula that I just gave you up here, we're going to plug our 2 in for r, and a 0 in for h, and a 0 in for k. So the equation will be 2 squared equals x minus 0 squared plus y minus 0 squared. Now, what is x minus 0? What is y minus 0? Well, those are just x and y. So to simplify that, to make it the way we would normally see it, you're going to make this a 4, is equal to x squared plus y squared. And by the way, you can actually have these flipped. You may see it written as x squared plus y squared equals 4. That is also the equation of the circle. Okay, so that's our first example. If I look at the second example, let's kind of do that to make some room here. Kind of the same thing. You're going to find the center. Now, if you notice, each of the dashes goes by 2 here. So that is actually the center. I'll just put a big C there. Is going to be at 2, 0. And once again, remember the dashes go by 2. So how far over am I going to each point on the circle? It looks like I'm going 2 dashes, which would be equivalent of 4 units over. 4 units up, 4 units left, 4 units right. So your R is going to be 4. So the equation will be 4 squared equals x minus 2 squared plus y minus 0 squared. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and make that a 16. You are going to leave this as x minus 2 squared. However, on the y part, you can just put plus y squared. Okay, so that would be one way to write it, or we could say x minus 2 squared plus y squared equals 16. And that would be your equation of the circle. I'm running out of room, so what I'll do here, let me kind of do that there, is I will do this one in this area here. So now let's take a look at where the center is. Notice that each dash goes by 1s. So it's going to be 1, 2 to the left, 2 up. And so the center for this one is going to be left 2, negative 2, up 2. And once again, the radius is just 2 up, 2 left, 2 right. Remember, radius is distance. So how far? So that's going to be positive. All right, so now when I go to put that in the formula, I'm going to say 2 squared equals, now watch this, it says x minus a negative 2 squared plus y minus 2 squared. So what is a minus a negative? That's going to become a plus, and so that's going to give me 4 equals x plus 2 squared plus y minus 2 squared. So essentially when you see a plus, that means that your coordinate was negative. And obviously we could write that a little bit nicer. I'll have to do it up here because you know me, I'm always out of room on everything. So my final answer would probably be x plus 2 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 4. And that would be the equation of the circle. So as you go through the problems, whenever you see a plus, that means that your coordinate was negative. Okay? All right, so that's the first part. Let's take a look at, I think I just have one more page. This is a pretty short lesson. These are just a couple examples. It says, use the given information to write the standard equation of the circle. We don't technically need to graph it, but let's go ahead and do that. We don't have to though, because we have everything we need. You just need the center, your h and k, and then you need your radius. To graph that though, 0, negative 3 would be here. Now, square root of 10, how do you graph that? So what I would do is just change it to a decimal. I don't know what it is exactly, but I know it's a little bit over 3. So maybe I'll say about 3.1, maybe 3.2, somewhere around there. So when I graph it, I'm just going to go a little bit past 3. So 1, 2, 3, I might just do a touch above 3. Go right, 1, 2, 3, a little bit past. 1, 2, 3, a little bit past. Down, 1, 2, 3, a little bit past. And once you have, I just do the 4 up, down, left, right, then you're just going to connect. And there's your circle. Oh, shoot. Try to hit the dots though. Okay, so now I know that this is my H, I know this is my K, and I know that this is my R. So remember the formula was R squared equals X minus H squared plus Y minus K squared. Okay, so here we go. The square root of 10 squared equals x minus 0 squared plus y minus a negative 3 squared, which is going to become a plus. Now, what is the square root of 10 squared? Aren't those inverse operations of each other? So my radius ends up just being 10. X minus 0 is just x, and then we're going to say y plus 3 squared. So my final answer, x squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 10. And there would be your equation of the circle. Last example, it says, here's your equation. Notice that we do have a plus there. So the center is going to be 2, negative 3. And remember, that's going to be your r squared. So if you take a look at that, r is actually going to be 2. But it says, tell whether each point is on the circle, on the interior of the circle, or on the exterior. So remember, on the circle means it actually lands somewhere on the circle here, when we go to draw it. Interior would be somewhere inside the circle, exterior would be somewhere outside the circle. So let's go ahead and draw this circle. So once again, we're going to identify the center, positive 2, negative 3. So 2, negative 3, that's our center, and my radius is going to be the square root of 4, which is 2. Okay, so we're going to graph that. So we're going to go over 2, down 3. There's my center, and I'm just going to go up, right, left, down 2. Up 2. And then down. Okay, so my camera stopped recording at some point in this, so I'm just going to go back and explain it really quick. So you have your center at 2, negative 3, because you have a positive 2 and a negative 3 here. And remember, this is our squared, which is going to give you a radius of 4. So I just plotted that on the graph, and then I drew left 2, right 2, right 2, left 2, up 2, down 2, and I just drew my circle. And so the last thing we want to do is we want to graph these points and say, is it on? Is it in the interior? Or is it on the exterior? So, using my other color here, I've got 0, 0. Now, these pens are a little bit thick, but notice that that is not on the circle. It is not on the inside of the circle. It is on the outside of the circle. So that would be on the exterior. So I'm simply going to write EXT next to that one. That's on the exterior. The point 0, negative 3 lands right there. That's actually on the circle, so I'll write on. And the last one is the point 1, negative 4. So if I go down left 1, or I'm sorry, to the right 1 and down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to land right there. That is on the interior. Okay, and there are the notes for 10.6. Now, before you hit stop, I wanted to take a second and go through what I want you to do on the assignment 10.6. So let me bring the worksheet over, and it might be helpful for you to take some graph paper, especially on the problem down here on the bottom. It's kind of what we just did. Take a piece of graph paper and graph the circle. And then that way you can actually see it. It's going to be a little more precise if you use graph paper than if you just drew your own grid, because some of them might be really close. As an example, this first one that we did 0, 0 was really close, but it wasn't quite on the circle, so it happened to be on the exterior. So my suggestion is to get a piece of graph paper if you have one, and you could probably print one out off free graph paper online for this assignment. But let me just explain quickly what you're going to be doing. What you're going to do is, this first part is just matching. So all you're going to do is, what I would do is over here is I would just identify what is the center, what is the radius, and then see which one matches. So as an example, I'll just randomly choose one, number 3. Remember, the plus means that the coordinate was negative. So my center would be negative 3, positive 5, right? So it would be negative 3, positive 5. And remember, this is always the r squared, which means that the square root of 16 is 4. So my radius would be 4. So then I'm going to come over here and say which one says the center is negative 3, 5 with a radius of 4. Well, it just happens to be the very first one, which is A. So I know the answer to number 3 is A. Okay. On the second part, it says give the center and radius. So all you're going to do is list pretty much what we just did here. What is the center? What is the radius? So as an example, if I looked at the first one here, notice I have x minus 4, y plus 2. So I know that this is a positive 4, this is a negative 2. So positive 4, negative 2. And remember, your radius is going to be the square root of 25, which is just simply 5. Okay. This one down here is pretty much what we did on this section right here. It's the same thing that we just did there. You're going to take a look and say, okay, what is the radius? Make sure you look at what each dash is. So for instance, this one goes by 2's. Okay, this one goes by 2's as well. This one goes by 2's as well. So please be paying attention to that part. This one is just writing the equation of the circle. They're telling you what the center is. They're telling you what the radius is. And so that would be a lot like this example that we did here. You know that x coordinate is your h, y coordinate is your k, and you know what your r is. And remember, you're going to be plugging that into your equation and then simplify it. And then the last part is what we just did a few minutes ago, where you may want to use the graph paper. You're taking a look at what is the center, what is the radius. Make sure you realize the radius is not 9. You're going to graph it, and then all you're going to put here is it on the interior, or is it on the exterior? Okay, guys, that's it on 10.6. That's it. That's all I got for you. All right, you guys are doing a great job. Just want to let you know I miss you.